And so we're delighted to be co-sponsoring with the Harlem Writers Guild, which is the oldest organization of African-American writers. There is more information about the library, by the way, right outside the door. We have some other interesting events coming up and so forth, so feel free to ask questions if we can answer anything, etc., about the place that we are in. We're also very honored to have today's event under our Black Literature Matters umbrella and sponsored by the Oak Foundation, so thank you very much to them. I'm now going to get off the stage and play a short introductory video, and we'll go from there. Enjoy.
Loving just the feeling, loving the vibration. Fly is aviation as we spread across the nation. One lifetime, take time for life's taking. We the greatest, the haters couldn't take it. And yeah, we made a statement, but we didn't need to break it. The movement we created just got everybody saying, if love is what we're making, every day's a celebration. If love is what we're making, every day's a celebration. If love is what we're making, every day's a celebration. If love is what we're making, every day's a celebration. Let's get together and feel alright.
Good afternoon, one love. My name is Diane Richards, the Executive Director of the Harlem Writers Guild. We're so thrilled to have you with us today. The Harlem Writers Guild was founded in 1950 by John Oliver Killens, Rosa Gee, Dr. John Henrik Clark, Willard Moore, and Walter Christmas. We are an integral part of the Black arts movement of the 1960s, with a membership of literary giants, artists, and activists, including Dr. Maya Angelou, Ossie Davis, Ruby Dee, Lorraine Hansberry, Audre Lorde, Pauline Marshall, Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, and Paul Robeson. We continue this legacy 75 years later.
You're here.
Thank you. We have some Harlem Writers Guild members in the audience. Would you please stand? Like I said, we're thrilled to have you with us today at this historic event, where we will witness an important discussion between two courageous cultural creators of the theater, literary, film, and the music realms of the arts. They have been the geniuses behind the scenes, but today we're going to bring them in front. Can we say amen to that?
Amen.
Okay. Today, when there are attacks on our humanity and Black culture, it's critical that we make time to understand and respect what these phenomenal men have committed their lives to. Love and freedom. Say it. Love and freedom. As Harry Belafonte said, one love is the only theme for humanity's survival. So let's listen carefully. We're going to have fun today, but also this is serious. This is a serious time. Let's begin with some artistic expression. We will have the artist Anubis give us spoken word, followed by an incredible actor, Gary Vincent. Both of these artists have been mentored. The artist Anubis by Voza Rivers.
Impact.
And Gary Vincent by Woodie King Jr. So I'll tell you a little bit about both of them, and then they will come to the stage and perform, and I know you will love it. By the way, we have a lot of important people in the audience. I can't name everybody, but I want to thank you for coming out, because you didn't have to this afternoon. Give yourself a round of applause. Thank you. The artist Anubis is a spoken word artist, published author, and a community cultivator. Anubis is the founder and executive director of the Harlem Bomb Shelter, Harlem's premier poetry and literary arts organization, providing education and empowerment through expression and entertainment with open mic, showcases, workshops, mentorship, and more for the past 11 years. Anubis produced and directed an original poetry play off-Broadway and published his first poetry anthology entitled, listen carefully, My People Burn and Other Visions. I like that. Anubis has joined the historic Harlem Writers Guild. Thank you, Anubis, and continues to use spoken word as a curator and as an artist to speak life into the world. Gary Vincent. Gary Vincent. Where are you, Gary? There you are.
Right there.
Gary E. Vincent is a Renaissance theater specialist who lives in New York. Gary is honored to speak the words of Reverend Mose Walker from Woodie King Jr.'s produced and directed play, So Is Red Gravy. He won an Aldelco Award for this character. The New York Times review of Vincent's performance stated, when Gary E. Vincent plays the Reverend Mose Walker, his sermon is so rhythmic that it feels like a concert. Brother Walker could have made Christopher Hitchens go to church.
Well.
All right? Well. Now, the great men of gospel, Sweet Mama Stringbean, A Matter of Interp, and So Is Red Gravy are some of Mr. Vincent's New Federal Theater creative experiences. Gary thanks Woodie King Jr. and Elizabeth Van Dyke for their love and belief in him. Okay, let's welcome our artists to the stage.
There's a battle inside me between how I want to live and how I want to be remembered. The introvert feels alone in any room that's crowded, but the noise hurts less than the silence. The extrovert wants to be the loudest noise in that room so that crowd shows up at my funeral. I wonder what stranger, fearing friends more than strangers, or wanting to be famous and not caring what the cost of fame is. When that abominable imbalance bubbles up inside, I feel like I'm Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I'm Mr. Hyde. My skin is tough, that's my hide. I show up whenever he wants to hide. Sometimes I just want to be alone with my thoughts. My thoughts aren't worth being heard like cattle into organ grinder. My organs grind to a halt. My stomach acid boils my heart at the thought of being on stage. Anyone can sing in the shower, but when you sing on a platform where they shower you with praise or place you on pedestal just to burn your naked body, lifted, just to fall like Icarus. Icarus was a fool. He flew too close to me, for I'll be the sun, be burning bridge, be blinding and flashing light, be superstar and nova. My wings would wax poetic, my wax would never wane. My feathers be quills dripping in ink, tattooing my bars onto your brain. I be soliloquy stitched in silhouette. I be the beast and the vet. If the moon be koi fish swimming in Black Sea, I be the fishing rod. If a picture could tell 1,000 words, I be the camera and the tripod. I be a god. Why am I like this? This groundhog burrowed in the belly of my own foreshadowing. Overshadowing what might be with what's frightening. Frightened, I'm living to die, just to wake at my own wake. And the truth is trapped inside our dreams. That's why we lie awake. I want to dream forever. Loved by the goddess of the moon, she would birth my poems like children and cast sleeping spells over their beds. Because every poem needs to be written, but every poem doesn't need to be read. I'll be ready to die. No biggie. I catch all my W's like butterflies and one big L. That's my legacy. I want fans to blow kisses and haters to pop smoke. Because before I take off, they will remember me. That's my Nipsey Hussle. Everyone will remember what my name is. Everyone is destined to die, but everybody doesn't have to be nameless. No one deserves to be forgotten, deserves to fade away. So every line of mine they remember is a layup. That's how you win the game. Life's not a game. And while you focus on winning, I suffer. Sucker, you lame. The climate's changed the flame I just utter. When we're on stage, I'm afraid I just stutter. We need fame to be a winner. I feel like a pretender. I just want to be remembered. I just want to remember me. There's a battle inside me between how I want to live and how I want to be remembered. Like my art is a mirror, and you'll forget what you see the minute I walk away.
Be all right. Can we say it together? One love. Let's go. One heart. Come on.
Let's stay together.
I love you.
Be all right.
One more time. Say it. One love.
One love.
Oh, Lord.
One love.
Oh, yeah.
Let's stay
Oh,
together.
be all right. Good afternoon, beloved.
Good afternoon.
I said good afternoon, beloved.
Good afternoon.
Beloved.
Please join me in prayer, followed by a word of silence for the brokenhearted. Let us pray. Dear Father, relieve me of the bondage of self, so that I might better do thy will. May a lie never leave my mouth, for verily I say unto you, I didn't do it. And it wasn't me. Now let us turn to the book of Mary. It ain't in the Bible. Those ministers and deacons got together and said, these women's too much. It's got to be a conspiracy. This book would have us believe that God wasn't packing. It can't be the truth. It would disrupt life as we know it, and all hell would break loose. However, my brothers and sisters, when a man is born that is of two peoples, the funky ass devil's waiting outside for that child to come out. When that child opens his eyes, the devil whispers, is you for me or against me? Thus, that's why the book of Mary can never be foretold. However, my brothers and sisters, I said, however, my brothers and sisters, when I came out of my mother's womb, the devil was waiting for me. People was fussing, fighting, and cussing. All kind of shit was happening. And Tottenham down the street started talking about my mama. And mama said, boy, get your ass outside and see if you can pick some cotton and help your daddy. And bring me that switch by the oak tree in his house for your ass if you don't mind. Okay, my dear. Don't worry. Don't weep. Oh, Mary, don't weep. Glory be to God. Oh, we're going to raise barren someday. I mean the Holy Ghost. I said, rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. God is good. Turn to your neighbor and say, all the time.
All the time.
The devil is up to no good.
The devil is up to no good.
You know it.
You know it.
I know it.
I know it.
But does the devil know it? Oh, that's the problem.
That's a problem. That's a problem. That's a real problem.
He don't know that we know it, and we got to keep it that way. Are you with me?
Well.
I need your help. Give me this here. Boom. We gotta talk about Mary. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. That's your part. I said, Mary. Hey, said Mary. One more time. I said, Mary. Oh, Father. I didn't do it. Oh, it wasn't me. I said it was the devil. King Solomon had 1,000 wives. How come I can't have 1,000 wives? Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Tell Martha not to moan. Tell Martha not to moan. Yeah. Oh, Lord, in summary, beloved, some of us, that's two peoples, call on the power of God, but we don't know what the hell we asking for. We say, God, what can I do? Well, he ain't talking, so what are you going to do now? You think some witch or warlock like Windy Willow or Beloza, whatever your flavor, gonna give you spells to get that woman, but they wrong and you wrong, because the devil set that plan and you a big fool. I told you what would happen if you walked down that long, dark alleyway. I told you what would happen, but you didn't listen. You walked into it anyway with your eyes wide open. That's what I said. Your eyes were wide open and you didn't care. Did you? Randia Voza. Glory be to God. Stick with me. Oh, stick with me. Glory, glory. Tell your neighbor, say, God is good all the time. Oh, Lord. As I said before, my brothers and sisters, the devil been dogging me every step of the way. That fool got a thing about me. Sometimes I wonder if he's into men. He just won't stop fucking with me. I said, but guess what? When I think about it in my right mind, what I'd witnessed is the devil masquerading as a man named Beloza, chasing my ass from town to town, church to church, bed to bed. And I couldn't resist the attraction of alcohol or the cool lemon sackcloth of that woman. So when the minister's wife wiped my brow and the deacon's wife nursed me back to health. After that barley corn run and ass whipping those deacons gave me, and even the mayor's wife paid off my bookie, I knew God is good. Turn to your neighbor and say, all the time. Oh, Lord. So, we're going to have spirits of the soul, not those alcoholic spirits after worship. If you got ailments, I got cures for everything. I said, be not weary. Trust in the Lord, and He will He will lay his hands on me. I got one more song for you. Boom, da boom, da boom, da boom, da boom. Oh, well, I'm on the battlefield for my Lord. Yes, I'm on the battlefield for my Lord. Oh, Lord. And I promised him that I'm going to serve him till I die. I said I'm on the battlefield. You know it? For my Lord, let me hear you sing it with me. Well, I'm on the battlefield. Oh, I'm on the battlefield. On the battlefield for my Lord. And I promised him that I would serve him till I die. Well, I'm on the battlefield for my Lord. Hallelujah.
Bravo. Pass the plate.
Who's singing? All right. That was much. Thank you. Let's give our talented artists. All right. How you feeling? Everybody feeling good? Okay. Now, the highlight of our program today, honoring our wonderful geniuses over here, Voza, Rivers, Woodie King Jr., and Michael Dinwiddie, who will moderate. Okay, I'm going to read their bios, and then after I read their bios, we will hear from our illustrious speakers and guests. Woodie King is an American director and producer of stage and screen, as well as the founding director of the New Federal Theater in New York City. Since 1970, the New Federal Theater has provided its community with a stage and collection of talented performers to express the voices of African American playwrights. The New Federal Theater produced nationally known playwrights such as Ron Milner, Checkmates, Ed Bullen's The Taking of Miss Janey, and Nisaki Shange for colored girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is enough, as well as actors including Morgan Freeman, Denzel Washington, Debbie Allen, Felicia Rashad, Glenn Turman, Samuel L. Jackson, and Lawrence Fishburne. Woodie King Jr. has written extensively to document the history of Black theater in America, as well as present the works of talented Black artists. He is the author of 13 books. Woodie, you're prolific. Including Black Drama Anthology, Black Poets and Prophets, and Black Short Story Anthology. And I want a big round of applause after I tell you this one. After more than 50 years of producing and directing, Woodie King Jr. received a Tony Award for Excellence in Theater in 2021. Stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up and give this applause. Stand up. Thank you. Voza Rivers.
My man. Yes, indeed.
Is an award-winning international producer of theater, film, music, and live events. Viewed by millions, Rivers' work as a theater producer, music executive, event producer, and documentary filmmaker has been presented in the United States, Japan, South Africa, Togo, Nigeria, Cuba, Canada, and the United Kingdom. And yes, I'm going to tell it all.
Come on, baby.
Okay? So, okay. The Grammy, Tony, and Oscar-nominated Rivers has produced concerts featuring world-renowned artists. This is just a partial list. Includes Nancy Wilson, Nina Simone, Ruby Dee, Luther Vandross, James Brown, the Count Basie Orchestra, Ray Charles, Ashford and Simpson, Boy George, George Benson, Tito Puente, Lionel Hampton, Isaac Hayes, Little Jimmy Scott, Celia Cruz, Marion Makeba. Remember that when we were trying to do that thing she did with her tongue? That was really big. Kool and the Gang, Hugh Masekela, Boys to Men, Tony Bennett, Anita Baker, Chuck Jackson, Max Roach, Gloria Lynn, Yolanda Adams, Mary J. Blige, Dionne Warwick, Manhattan Transfer, Tony Braxton, Jonathan Butler, Phyllis Hyman, Grover Washington, Al Jarreau, and Shaka Khan. Okay, we can't tell it all.
Okay.
Michael, we can't tell it all.
Okay, all right.
Okay, Voza Rivers has served as executive editor and has been featured in a number of publications and periodicals, including Forever Harlem. He is the executive producer of more than, take a deep breath, 52 documentary films, including Langston Hughes, Percy Sutton, The Savoy King, and The Music That Changed America.
Yes.
Yes, get up, get up.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you got a big job ahead of you, Michael.
I know. I have to follow the Reverend and.
Well, we relaxed. And
Okay,
we
that's
having
good.
fun.
Okay,
and this
good.
is all good. It's all good. Okay. Now, Michael Dinwiddie, and I had somebody from the audience gave me more information that has to be shared with you today. Is a playwright composer whose works have been produced in New York, regional and educational theater. An associate professor at NYU's Gallatin School, he has served as playwright in resident at Michigan State University, Florida A&M University, St. Louis University, and La Universidad de Palermo in Buenos Aires. His awards include a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship in Playwriting and a Walt Disney Fellowship at Touchstone Pictures. In 2022, the Michael Dinwiddie Playwright Award was created by the Black Liberated Arts Center. Michael sits on the boards of the College of the Fellows of the American Theater, the August Wilson Society, and the New Fest LGBTQ+ Film and Media. He is the editor of Holy Ground, an anthology of plays and monologues from the National Black Theater Festival, which was published in TCG in 2022. A member of the Dramatists Guild, ASCOT, BMI, and the Writers Guild of America, Michael is a past president of the Black Theater Network. And what we learned today is that Michael Dinwiddie was the first person of color, non-actor producer as a Tony Award nominating committee. He was a part of that. Come on, let's give him a round of applause. So now, let's welcome our illustrious guests and hear from them.
Wow. Thank you, Diane, for that introduction. We have to first acknowledge we are on the unceded land of the Lenape, Lenni people whose forefathers were the ancestral guardians of this land, whose descendants continue to live amongst us in peaceful coexistence. And we also honor those who were brought from our motherland of Africa to labor and build the wealth of the Americas. We pay tribute to all our ancestors, indigenous and diasporic. Ashe. So, I am delighted to have this opportunity to sit with two men who have helped to create and define American theater and film in the 20th century, I guess the 21st now, I gotta add that on. Pioneers who forged a path where there was none. Voza Rivers and Woodie King, you are icons. Your work has served as a beacon for so many others. Thank you for all that you've done. and all you're going to keep doing, I hope, and for the wisdom you're going to impart today. But before I begin, I brought gifts for you. So, get ready. Okay, so, not these. Woody, when I was with you, you said, I want a copy of that book, the book in which it talks about James Baldwin and Owen Dotson and all that stuff and everything. And so, Sorrow is the Only Faithful One by James Hatch, autographed The Life of Owen Dotson. And I'm going to ask you about that in a minute. Woo. Yeah, you wanted it. You got it. All right. This is how you warm up the people that you're interviewing. You know, I'm giving them a gift. Voza, in 1999, you produced a play that was at the National Black Theater Festival.
Yes.
And I'm sure you already have a copy, but this one is autographed by the editor. And it says, Voza, wherever you walk is holy ground. Peace and blessings, Michael.
Thank you.
Here you go.
Thank you.
So see, you put a smile on their face, they might tell you anything. So the first thing I want to ask you guys is, where did you meet? How did you meet each other? And then also, what was the first production you did together?
You want to take it?
Voza, you start. You can start.
Yeah. I'm the youngest. So
Woo! It's going to be that kind of day. Okay.
I got a chance to, when I joined New Heritage Theater Group in 1964 as a volunteer with Roger Furman, who had just started his theater company. He would say to me that, and I volunteered, I did not want to be an actor, no part of the creative part of being in the theater. But he said that I should go to theaters and see, because I told him outright when I met him that I didn't want to be in the theater as an actor, but I wanted to help volunteer. And he made certain suggestions on where I should go to see black theater. So at 20 years old, I had never seen a black play. Roger, when I met him, shared with me that I needed to absorb and see what we were doing in theater. And he told me about Woodie King and Woodie King's theater. So I used to go anonymously. Nobody knew who I was because I was a volunteer in the theater and sit in the dark and watch Woodie's plays that he produced. And the talent that he had and the stories that he was telling back then touched me so much that I said, wow, this is really great. I never had an idea that Roger Furman, who had created his theater, would not be around. And when Roger passed in 1985 with AIDS, I got a chance to become the executive producer of the theater. And the first person that I wanted to reach out to was Woodie King. And I reached out to Woodie King and asked him, because like I said, for those early years of being in the theater, I was just a volunteer. But I learned all different areas from being the box office person, the maintenance person, focus, lights, paint, sets, etc. But I had never produced a play. And now Roger's reputation of the work that he had done for his 20 years, I knew that I needed to go to the master. And I went to Woodie King and asked if we could do something together. I had just taken over the theater. And Woodie and I hooked up, and we did the play. Woodie can talk about the very first play and that first experience. I'll turn it over to Woodie.
Woody, tell us about that first experience.
Well, we were doing Lawrence Holder, and I think it was Chickens.
When chickens come home to roost.
Yes, and like the associate artistic person at the New Federal Theater now is Cynthia Kidd, and she's in the audience. And we might do a play, and Cynthia used to say, and still says, that people who came through the door of the theater was the who's who in American theater now. And the who's who in American theater including Voza Rivers, Dick Anthony Williams, Denzel Washington, Jackie Harry, Lynn Whitfield, and we did not charge young people any kind of tuition. They would volunteer to be ushers. They would volunteer to do box office, and so Voza would come in and out. He sort of like was as cool then as he is now. And you sort of like knew, he would say, I like this. This is nice. This is good play. And I didn't know he was trying to get his season together. But as I said to Voza today, it's almost like if you want to do something in Harlem, you call Voza. If you want to do something at the Schomburg, you call Voza. If you want to do something with the Harlem Arts Alliance, you call Voza. And it will be taken care of in 25 minutes. He'll call you back. And it's the only artist that I know of who says, I'll get back to you, that he actually gets back to you. So I am grateful for having met and worked with Voza. But one of the unique experiences that I had with Voza, I don't know if he had, Chuck Jackson, who recently passed and they honored him, recorded any day now, and we honored Voza, and Chuck Jackson sang and looked at Voza, and I hope you remember this, Voza just smiled. Now he was not a record producer. I don't think he had anything to do with that record. But that's who Chuck Jackson would go to for advice. And that is what the theater is about. Someone who can talk to you and say, Voza, I'm thinking about doing this and this and this and this. And Voza would say, well, I think you should do this and this and this. If they do that, they will be a better person, they'll be a better artist, and their work will be received. And you saw earlier the kids. When we honored Voza, that was one of their first public performances. And I fell in love with them. It was like, I said, how is this possible? They're that good. Because they worked around Voza Rivers. Mm-hmm. So I hope that answers you, but I am very moved by people who can talk to people. It's like a good director. I don't know if you all direct. It's like a good director. You can say a few things, and the artist knows exactly what he is talking about, she is talking about, and goes up and does it. And then, after he leaves the stage, or she leaves the stage, that part of them will be forever remembered. And back in the day, we used to have people like Lloyd Richards and Viola Spolin, Stella Adler, Elia Kazan. If they could whisper in your ear, say, I think you should try it this way. I think you should try it this way. It will work out differently. And that, it would be no emotional, nothing. And We have in the audience there, I think, Petronia Paley.
She's here.
Yeah,
she's here.
Yeah. They honed us and made us better people, I think. You know, yeah, I got degrees and all that. Got a couple doctorates. And Liz always laughs when I say that. But, you know, they were easy, though. You know, it was not easier. You had to travel to get them. You had to...
Life is hard, Woody. Hard life.
Yeah. You had to travel the Waynes to Detroit.
Yeah.
You know.
So one of the things, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but you said something earlier that really hit me and struck me. First of all, Voza talking about just a volunteer. It feels like in the theater, most of what you do is give away what you have. It's not just a volunteer, so that we all love that energy. And one thing you didn't mention was, who was in that play, When the Chickens Come Home to Roost, that first play that you did that I saw way back in whatever it was?
Denzel Washington.
Yes.
Kirksey. Then we did it again.
Yes.
Again and again after they left. And now Denzel is one of the top rated artists in America.
But Woody, there's something you used to say about that. You said whenever Denzel would come out on the stage,
the audience they would gasp first. They would, oh my God. Malcolm X came back to life.
because he thought he was Malcolm X. He looked like he had the glasses and the little hair and everything, and the audience would just go, oh, which is what we did.
Yeah. And he had the vocal intonations, and it was like a unique.
Give him the mic.
It was sort of like a unique experience, you know. And me and my partner at the time was Dick Anthony Williams. He's sort of like passed on.
Yes.
Brilliant actor. Oh, Pretty Tony and all those films he did where he was tall and thin and as a rail. And we would just look at Denzel. Then we would go out to Zaffi's, whatever. What's that place we used to go to? They closed. Dick and Terry's.
Oh, yeah.
McKell's, and we just went to McKell's. We were talking about it yesterday. Yeah, Russ Brown's. It's all of them are gone.
Well, you know, I have a question. Harlem, you were born in Harlem,
Yes.
Voza.
Yes.
But Woody, you did the great late migration from Alabama to Detroit to New York. Why did you come to New York? Who brought you to New York?
Nobody brought me, but I was.
Okay.
But I got to tell you, I was hip enough to. Raising the Sun was touring Detroit, and I would go to the theater almost every performance, and I would walk with Douglas Turner Ward and Robert Hooks and Lonnie Elder from the theater to their hotel, asking questions. And that paid off for me later. Oh man, it paid off for me unbelievably well later on. Because I stayed in touch with Robert Hooks. And Robert Hooks was beginning to excel in TV series. And I forgot the name of the series, but it was a very hot series. And he couldn't take a regular job. So when the poverty program came along, 67, 68, they had asked this woman, Marilyn Bibb, if Robert Hooks can do it. He said, no, but I know the guy who can. And he gave it to me. She gave it to me. And I had this job at like, I think maybe 20 years old. I think I was making so much money. And so I would, in my time off, I would, act in plays, did Broadway, Great White Hope, did Off-Broadway, all these plays and movies. And trying to get to that place. But that was it. But Robert Hooks helped me tremendously.
Okay. And you also had a relationship with Langston. We'll talk about that later.
Okay, yeah, we talk about that
Yeah,
later.
but I want to get to impact and what we saw, this presentation from the young people. Woodie mentioned it, how impactful it was. Tell us a little bit about that, Voza.
Well, I have a partner named Jamal Joseph. For those of you who know Jamal, when he was 15 years old, he was arrested as a member of the Black Panther Party, and there was a conspiracy with the Black Panther Party, and the police and the undercover agents was trying to get the Black Panther Party back then to identify historic sites to burn down. But that was being directed by a police infiltrator in the Black Panther Party. So there became this great big trial called the Panther 21, where those people who were involved, and Jamal was 15 years old, involved in the Black Panther Party, and he was arrested. Jamal lied about his age when he joined the Panther Party, and he subsequently did 8 years in Leavenworth Prison.
Wow.
And while in prison, he received all of his degrees through his master's degree. The correction officer knew that Jamal was a young guy in prison. He didn't know, again, how young Jamal was, but Jamal was able to create a theater program in the prisoners so that he could be protected from all of the different camps. You had, the skinheads, you had all of these different courts. But Jamal, while he was in prison, started writing plays, and he always reflected back when he was 15 years old and a member of the Panther Party and being a part of the breakfast program. And so he comes out of prison with his master's degree, and he meets, let me back up. While he was in prison, he was thinking, what would he do when he come out of prison? And he had read that Charles Dutton, an actor, was also incarcerated and did time for manslaughter. Charles Dutton comes out of prison, meets August Wilson, and becomes goes to Yale University, then meets August Wilson and becomes one of the famous actors in the August Wilson camp. So Jamal comes out of prison with the same concept for himself, that he would also be able to get into theater. What happened is that he met Charles Dutton one evening after Charles Dutton's performance with his wife, and he talked about his desire to also be involved in the theater, and especially black theaters. And he was armed with all of these scripts that he had written while he was in prison. And he went to Woodie, he went to this person, anyone who he could get information on who was running the theater. And all of them said, my God, man, you can write, but you got 30, 40 characters in all of these plays. There's no one who could produce these kind of shows. And it was Charles Dutton who said, where you living in? He said, Jamal said, I'm living in Harlem. He says, well, this is interesting. I just saw a play on Broadway, and there were 35 kids in a show called Sarafina. And there was this guy that I met. I didn't know him, which is me. He's telling Jamal. He says, but man, this guy's in Harlem. He did plays, and he's got 35 young people that he's involved with. Why don't you go and meet him? I didn't know Charles Dutton. I get a call that Charles Dutton wants me to meet Jamal Joseph. And that began the relationship. I took the meeting with Jamal, first out of prison, armed with all of these scripts. I know he could write, but they were tense with so many characters. He comes to my office and tells me his story. and I said to Jamal, I want to do something for you. I want to option your play. He said, that means you're going to do it. And he got all excited. I says, no, I'm not. I haven't read the play. I haven't read the play, but I want to option your play just in case later on I get a chance to do it. So I take out my checkbook and I write a check for $500. First time I met him, he just came out of prison, and he thought that I had given him $5,000. He and his wife would not cash the check because they thought, and Jamal said, maybe I can make a living. You're the first person, and you have given me an opportunity that you will do my play in the future. A year later, with Ellis Hazlip as a director, Charles Dutton, who introduced me to Jamal, is in the play, and we did it at the Schomburg Center. And through that relationship around the kids in Impact, and through that relationship with the kids in Sarafina, that whole concept, Jamal living in Harlem, he meets me, I option his play, and we talk about how do we give back. And the giving back was to start a youth division so that we could share our experiences. And through that process, we created a program called Impact. And Impact is an acronym for what the kids learn from Jamal and I. I is for inspiration, M is for motivation, P is for preparation, A is for activism, C is for commitment, and T is for teamwork. They named themselves that after they took these free classes with us on a regular basis. And we were so proud of them, so proud that these young people that you see now were able to write music. They wrote music for a film called August Rush. They were nominated for an Oscar for Best Song in a Musical. And the next year, the soundtrack was nominated for a Grammy. And these are the same kids that you are seeing now.
These are the stories that we never know and never get to hear. So thank you so much, because what I'm hearing is that both of you men have mentored so many generations now, and I have to now tell my story, which is when I came to New York from Detroit, and everybody said, go see Woodie King.
Yes.
And so my first trip was to the New Federal Theater, and I showed Woodie my little book of my little things I had done in college and everything, and he politely looked at it and everything. And then about a month or two later, I got a phone call to come and audition. And it was for a play by Owen Dotson, a play called Divine Comedy. And I got the role, and I thought, oh, I'm such a good actor. But I found out later it was because I could play the piano. And they needed someone to play the piano. But that was all right with me, because that was my first role in New York, and I was able to work at the New Federal Theater and get my... So they mentor, they bring us in. They bring us to this. And the other thing I want to tell you, you all don't know this, but Woodie worked at Motown Records.
Yes.
He was not a singer. Where are you, Woodie? You want to sing for him?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. He worked with something called Black Forum, which was in the 1970s. Well, Woodie, I'll let you talk about what Black Forum was.
Black Forum was a division of Motown where they were going to deal with the spoken word and to deal with this new thing, the new black poets in America, and these angry poets who was spouting things like, it was really hip-hop, but with words only. And they wanted to move into that. And it was happening, they thought, out of New York and LA. And so at that time, I was working for Rockefeller Foundation. And in LA, I tried to hook up with Quincy Troop, and I couldn't hook up with Quincy Troop. So when I couldn't hook up with people, I gave them a grant from the Rockefeller Foundation. And they were that good.
Woodie, how do you get jobs like that?
Well, it was, you know, I had been hooked up with the American Place Theater.
Okay.
And I had produced a play off Broadway prior to, and I get back to Motown.
Okay.
A black quartet, 4 one-acts, Baraka, Milner, Ben Caldwell, and Ed Bullins.
Yes.
And it was, I called all my friends all across America. And back then, you could do a play off Broadway with $20,000-$25,000. And I asked everybody to put in $250, invest in it. And I produced that play at Tambellini's Gate Theater. I produced that play at Bill Cherry as a publicist, and he had Irene Gandy working in his office. So I see, but anyway, these plays got visibility. And so the foundations at that time had only 3 people in the arts that ran it, and ran the arts part. And one day the guy came and saw the play, he liked it and asked me if I would like to be a consultant with them. And I said, yeah, you know, and that's how I got that.
Okay.
But Motown was producing these spoken words, a forerunner to hip hop. And I produced first New Black Poets in America. That was when they had albums. They didn't have, you know. Okay, and so we would go into this. They weren't on West Grand Boulevard then, and then they found out I was from Detroit, and there was a guy named George Schiffer who later on became a co-producer of one of the plays we did at New Federal. And Liz was in that play. Lynn Whitfield was in that play. What was the name of that play?
Liz Van Dyke.
Yeah, Liz. The name of that play was, Showdown Time. And George Schiffer got so much credit inside of Motown that the other writers got into theater. Mickey Stevens, and Smokey sent Billie Holiday a play.
Billie Holiday Theater.
Billie Holiday Theater. And so that was how that, and then I did Baraka. And now you can see it, you can see Baraka on Facebook and everywhere, and the cover of the album. I don't know how he got that, but it's there. And they play Baraka. He does maybe 4 tunes, 4 of his poems from that. And that is still one of Motown's biggest sellers in the hip hop thing. And so it was a good time. And that good time, we didn't know that we were doing something that no one else had done, you know, doing the spoken word on record, you know. So that was how that
I just want everybody to know that you had worked at Motown. So the next time you see the Supremes or the Miracles, just realize that Woodie King was out there with them too. Not
and my
singing.
favorite group for still is Manhattans.
Oh, okay. All right. Watch out. We won't have that conversation right now. Okay. But, you know, Voza has worked with some interesting people. And in 2008, he did a documentary on Percy Sutton. So can you talk a little bit about that, Voza?
Yes.
That's that and your relationship with Percy?
Yes. So Percy Sutton was a former borough president of Manhattan. He was the person who rescued the Apollo Theater to make it is what you see it is today. Percy Sutton had radio stations in New York and Texas and all across the country. The #1 urban station, WBLS, which is still in existence today. I I had a company on 42nd Street called New York Entertainment and Sports Advisors, and myself and 3 attorneys were representing artists. We represented Ben Harney when Ben Harney won the Tony Award for Best Actor in a Musical for Dreamgirls. We had the Count Basie Orchestra. And we were doing artist work, and Percy Sutton's office was on 43rd Street and 2nd Avenue, and our office was on 42nd Street between 5th and Madison. And I used to go to the Apollo. I got a chance to meet Percy Sutton, and he asked about this company that I had, and he was looking, and here's the crossover, Woody, because Motown had approached Percy Sutton about creating a label for Apollo Theater Records.
Wow.
Percy Sutton came to my office and shared the news with me and said that he wanted me to be the operating officer of this new label called Apollo Theater Records. I became the chief operating officer of the Apollo Theater Records, and after 2 years, he said that we should create a management company to sign artists who appeared on the Wednesday night amateur hour. If they won, not only could we offer them a recording contract, but if they didn't have a manager, we would manage them. And I said it was a great idea. My son-in-law, Steve Lawrence, is there, and he was my A&R guy back then. And I had the chance to be Percy Sutton's partner and run the artist management company. Further, and you may ask me later on about my relationship with Japan, but there was another gentleman that I used to see every Wednesday night at the Apollo Theater. His name was Katsuya Abe, and he was bringing in Japanese tourists every Wednesday to see amateur hour at the Apollo, and then after they saw the shows, they would visit restaurants and bars, etc. I was there every Wednesday looking at the talent, so that if someone won that evening and I thought they were good enough, I'd go backstage and sign them with a contract.
I'm going to interrupt you, because you and Woody, I'm hearing, I think you're just theater guys, but you're entrepreneurs. You creating businesses and doing all kinds. Woody was National Black Touring and all that. Okay, go on. I just wanted to point that out, because I'm sitting there going.
So with Mr. Abe, one evening, he and I were both standing in the back of the theater, and I was always impressed with the number of Japanese tourists he would bring every week, and then take them to the restaurants in Harlem. And as we were having a conversation, he told me and shared with me the love of African American culture in Japan. And he would share these stories with me, not only with the musicians, but he said there are other things that we do. And I said, wow, this is great. And we became friends. And then he said that, I have some investors in Japan who would love to be able to take an Apollo Theater concept to Japan. So I said, wow, that's great. And he said that if you could introduce me to Percy Sutton, I could share this opportunity to introduce him to investors. I said, sure. So I told Percy Sutton and his nephew, who was the president of the label, Oliver Sutton, about an opportunity to build a Apollo Theater in Japan. And Percy Sutton said, absolutely not. Voza, Japan wouldn't be interested in building an Apollo Theater in Japan. After numerous attempts to try and facilitate a meeting with the Japanese and Percy Sutton, he says, stop telling me this. If they want it, you go ahead, you do the deal, and I want $250,000 just to license the deal.
Wow.
And I went and I told the guys, and they said, "Where do we sign?" They built an Apollo Theater in Japan. I became the executive producer of the Apollo Theater in Japan for 6 years, and every year I would go and produce the amateur shows at the Apollo in Japan. Eventually it closed after 6 years, but that's part of moving on with different interests. The Apollo Theater in Japan was a replica of the Apollo, but it was much more upscale and the techniques. You would go to the Apollo Theater in Japan and see a show. You go next week and the stage turns around. The seats are in the underneath the floors because they wanted you to be able to dance or have a social thing. And then to go back again and the seats are on the other side. Everything was mobile and state of the art. And it was always fascinating for me to go and see that and be a part of it. And I didn't speak Japanese.
Wow, those are stories we never get to hear. So I want to ask now, what's the show you wanted to produce, Woodie, Voza, that you didn't get to do? What's the one that you're like, bad?
Well, I have a history of working with some of the bigger cultural institutions like Lincoln Center. But Lincoln Center, I did not go downtown to follow or to be a partner with Lincoln Center. They came uptown. They came uptown to our small 150-seat theater to see the work that we were doing. Joseph Papp came uptown to see the work that we were doing. So right away after Roger died, I started doing co-productions with the Public Theater, with Lincoln Center. And with Lincoln Center, we did our first Japanese, our first, not Japanese, but our first South African play, which was called Woza Albert, that captured the history of a person who co-founded with Nelson Mandela let me stop for a second, the African National Congress.
Okay, ANC. Okay.
Yeah. We then did a second play, which was called Asena Mali, in Harlem. Lincoln Center came again to see the work. They were impressed, and so was Harry Belafonte, who came to see it, Quincy Jones, who came to see it. This is a small 150-seat theater. All of these big shots came to see the play. After it ran for 8 sold-out weeks in our small theater, Harry decided to take the show to Broadway, and we went to Broadway, and that was nominated for a Tony. The next play that we did was the big one, which was called Sarafina. And with Sarafina, Lincoln Center was a partner. Lincoln Center decided to bring Sarafina to Lincoln Center first. And in partnership with myself and our theater, we brought the cast of Lincoln Center up to Harlem, to City College, to perform for Harlemites, for the students and the residents, before the show went to Broadway. And so the rest is history. Lincoln Center did very well and won all these awards. It's 35 years later. Lincoln Center, not Lincoln Center, but Sarafina is a feature-length film. And we also did a documentary on Sarafina, and that's good. All of those things happened. The last show was called Township Fever. Township Fever was going to be the biggest of all of the South African plays that I was involved with Lincoln Center. So Lincoln Center said that they wanted to do this production with New Heritage Theater in Committed Artists, South Africa. But they had no theaters available to do the show in. The Mitzi Newhouse was taken. We went to see Broadway houses. All of those theaters at that time, in that particular year, they were all busy. So Bernie Gersten decided and said, Voza, have you been to Brooklyn? I says, yeah, I've been to Brooklyn. He says, what about the Brooklyn Academy of Music? I said, it sounds great. He said, I'm going to call the Brooklyn Academy of Music and see if they would be interested in doing Township Fever. Serafina had 35 actors. Township Fever has 42. Big show, big cast. And we went to Harvey Lichtenstein at BAM, Brooklyn Academy of Music, and we opened up the show, and nobody came. When I say nobody, you're in a theater where maybe you had 100 people. So we knew that the Lincoln Center audience, the people in the city, they weren't going to Brooklyn. And so now we have invested with Lincoln Center in this production. After about the first week of performances, Bernie Gersten came to myself and Duma and Gluvu, my South African partner, and said, listen, guys, this is the heart of the black community is here. You're in downtown Brooklyn and you're nearby Bed-Stuy. What I want to be able to do is to figure out, we don't have anything to lose, if you and Duma, before each performance, would encourage those few people who saw the show to go out and tell everyone else if they liked the show. And that's what we did. After 8 weeks, we sold out all of the performances. Now, the investors came to take the show to Broadway. And what happened is the Gulf War broke out. And we were not able to get the financial support. That was the biggest disappointment for me because the reviews of the show, the subject matter, and the success of the other previous 3 shows from South Africa, this was going to be the big one. And this was a show that we weren't able to take to Broadway. But the relationship with Committed Artists South Africa and the opportunities to work with the South African company bodes well because today we're working on bringing Serafina back to Broadway. So we're trying to do that for next year. And then there's another new play out of South Africa that they've asked me to be involved with. And so I'll wait to share that information as it becomes more finalized.
Thank you. That's an amazing story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Woody,
Yeah.
I'm going to change it on you a little bit here because you did a play and you told me the story of going down to a bar and you were the man sitting in the front in the audience and the whole play was directed at you. And so I want you to talk a little bit about that play, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah. That was, okay. They were doing a play for colored girls who considered suicide when the rain was enough. And there was a bar about half the size of this, about from this side of the audience, at a place called DeMonte's. Very small, you know, and the stage was about half this size. So it was 10 women in the play. And so they selected me to direct a lot of the poems at. And I'm saying, now, why did they select me? Did R. Scott, Ntozake, no, Ntozake's sister told them that Woody would be there tonight. And so they used that. And so Ifa Baeza said, Woody, I know you were pissed off that they did this. I just told him you would be here. I didn't tell him to direct it at you, and blah blah blah. And so I was listening, but the play was absolutely fabulous, and I had just seen Elizabeth and I had just seen a week before Revelations, and I said, this got a lot of Avalon 80s movement, and got a lot of this in it. and we had a little bit more, but it had 10 women. And they knew I didn't want to do a play with 10 women. But but the 3 women they got rid of, they were dear friends of mine. And I said, am I going to let this bother me? So I picked up the play, called up, 5 or 6 people at foundations and places, and got the money. See, you could do showcases in those days, 16 or 20 performances over 4 weeks. And I think he paid $250 for the whole 5 weeks. And so who did I call? Anyway, we got the money. It was very easy, because if I saw it like today, next Thursday, if I stay on the phone all day, I could have the money by next Thursday. That's the way it was back then. So, yeah, very, very different. Okay, because it was African Americans in the positions at the foundations to say yes or no. Okay, and I already knew Judy Deering. I already knew Bill. Pardon?
He's Frank.
Yes, yeah, and I already knew Irene Gandy and Bill Cherry, so I knew I had the promotional apparatus. I could just call up, and they would say, "Oh yeah, we can do it. We can do it. We can do it." And the sets, lights, and costumes. I think we had Victor Inutan working on it, and all the people. Anyway, we could get the people. So 2 weeks later, the play opened at New Federal and got the kind of reviews that you would die for. And we had companies in Australia, companies in London, companies in Paris, and Bermuda. I mean, within 5 months, we had companies all over. And so by having that, you could go to a Joseph Papp and he could open it and run it, Yeah. And it could win all the awards and all that. But Zaki wanted to direct. That's into Zaki Shangi. Yes. She wanted to direct, and she wanted her team of people. And she did that with all of her plays, and then had to stop because her plays, except for one, could not grab the audience. We did our plays everywhere, but it was a great. It wasn't a learning experience. It was like it began to teach me you cannot let something that's directed at you that works, even if it being directed at you is ill-advised. A good producer, don't let that bother him. Okay, it's the play. Does it work? Yeah, it works. Yeah, it's integrated. It's choreographed well. It's all. And Judy Deering did the hell out of the costumes. It was like wonderful. So that's what happened with that.
Thank you, Woody. I think that's a great place for us to segue into questions from the audience.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions they want to ask us? We have a few minutes for that. Yes, ma'am. Tell us your name, please. And
in LA. And I just wanted to know what you're working on now.
Did everyone hear the question? Everyone here? What are they working on now?
Well, Elizabeth Van Dyke is the producer, but that's her right there in all white. A play called Telling Tales Out of School.
It's very good.
And it's about the recreation of Zora Neale Hurston, Nell Larson, Jessie Fawcett, and Nancy Cunard. These 4 women. And I'm directing. Who else? Chris Cumberbatch is doing the set.
Oh, you got to tell one more thing, which is that they go to a funeral of Alain Locke, and they remember who Alain Locke was to them.
Okay.
That's
okay.
important.
Okay.
So, Dr.
Now,
Locke.
okay, but that's what okay. Now, Dr. Alain Locke taught at Howard University, and he was the, I don't want to say instigator, but he was he defined the word Harlem Renaissance in 1921. Okay, now in defining that word, you know about the Harlem Renaissance? Okay, these were powerful women during that time. But Dr. Locke was kind of, you know.
He was a lot.
Yeah, yeah, and but he was so powerful you couldn't talk about that as part of his life. They could talk about how he had, after his mother died, he would have a funeral for her and sit her at the table, and she would sit there dead, you know.
Serving tea.
Yeah, serving tea, a teacup in her hand, and so it's that kind of a play. But but these are four. I gotta tell you, these are four of the hippest women
During that period.
during that period.
That's right.
So you can't, you know, it's like if you went to Toni Morrison and Maya Angelou. Toni Morrison can't put nothing over Maya Angelou. She knows everything.
Yeah.
Have read all her books. Okay, so they've read everybody's books. They know each other. These four women. So in 1954, Alain Locke dies. Now they come to his funeral. Now why did they come to his funeral? And that's what the play is about.
Yeah, there you go. Now you told it. Now you told it. Okay, it's like, I want to come see that play. Voza, something you want to tell us about?
I'm working on a play by a Japanese artist who, this will be the third time that I've produced this play called Gravity of Love. And it really deals with unification of cultures. And I have another play, Turning 15 on the Road to Freedom, with Irene introduced me to the two lovely ladies sitting next to her. And
Irene Gandy is here.
Irene Gandy, yeah. In 1964, when Roger Furman started his company, shortly thereafter is when I met Irene. She was an understudy for one of our plays back then.
She
and
was
that's
an
how,
actor?
yes.
I didn't know that. No, she. Okay, I got to tell my Irene story, which is that when she worked for the Negro Ensemble Company as a publicist, she told me how she would make sure articles got into the paper. Yeah, go right ahead. Nice and loud.
Hello, I'm Irene Gandy.
Yes. Yeah, give her the mic. Thank you. But she's going to give you the mic so everybody can hear what you're saying. No, I don't make her stand up.
No, she don't stand. Don't stand, Irene.
You know, I just want to say that you continue to serve, and the reason I'm 50 years on Broadway and still just shows it's successful because of people like, you know, Voza, Woodie in the black community. And I think whatever people are doing, we still call each other. It's like I knew for turning 15 and Woodie and Liz, you know, I'm like, because we have to stick together. And I love what you said about, because the black people up on the Arts Foundation, the money does trickle down to the black people, but it never trickles down to where we don't have that. I mean, I'm remiss in saying that the black people that are in foundations or whatever, they're spending their money on Martha's Vineyard instead of, you know, on helping like the impact and stuff. So I'm glad I'm still here, and we're activists, and we take care of each other, and we still do. And thank you, Michael Dinwiddie. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to say it's the 80-plus club. I think that's fantastic. You know,
Yes.
I mean, all three. Yes, question in the back. Yes, ma'am, Stephanie Berry.
I have a question, but I just wanted to share
Yes.
We take political issues and create theater one shot. And I was working with Aisha Rothman, played when I first started, this is years ago, and she said, call Woodie King, he
Yep.
will teach you how to get started. I said, I can't call Woodie King. It took me a week to call you Woodie, because I was so scared. And Aisha made me do it, so I'm literally shaking. By the end of the conversation, not only had Woodie given me a master class, but he shared a foundation contact with me, which from what I understand, you don't do that. It takes work to cultivate relationships with corporations and foundations for funding. Woodie handed it over to me on a silver platter, and I can tell you the foundation later. And they supported one of my first efforts because Woodie King told them to. Soon after that, I can't remember if it was Woodie or Tunde Samuels with National Black Theater. I think it was both of you all said you have to call Voza. Again, I was scared to call you. It didn't take me a week to look up the day. But once again, by the end of these gentlemen have now become close personal friends. I can call them whenever, whatever time. Voza, there is nothing that I ask that he does not respond immediately.
Yes.
When he talked about Voza's one of the few people that
Calls you
respond,
back.
I just called him the other day. In 24 hours, tops. Of course, now he reminds me that I have to remind him to call him. But there's nothing, once I say I'm doing something to serve the community and using theater, there's nothing these gentlemen will not do to support and help.
Thank you, Stephanie Berry. Beautiful. Anyone else have a question? Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm Darrell T. Downing, and I worked with Mr. Rivers in Harris's Theater for many, many years, over 30 years. But when they started on the party line,
Yes.
talking about the generosity and the community sharing. When they started Harlem Party Line, I was tasked with passing or distributing the awards. Now, I had no idea what I was supposed to do. What was said? All of these artists have just joined the Harlem Arts Line. When they come in, they named on this list, and then announce themselves, and then give them the check. So I said, what? Give them the check. I didn't sign the paperwork and give them the check. That meant that all they had to do was come in, tell me who they were, and I gave them the check for their organization. None of them believed that they got a check. All they had to do was believe it. So the generosity first of all, I was overwhelmed at that type of situation. But the people and all the artists who benefited were thoroughly overwhelmed. Because half of them tried to audition, but they didn't have to. So I thank you for putting me in the middle so that I could be a part of the sharing process and then growing with that organization.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm going to, oh, one more back here. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm new to this field, even though I've been around a long time. My name's Tony Beer. I'm in personal development. I'm listening. I'm like, you guys are making a real big difference. I have a suggestion. I'd love to see it, which is, can y'all do some movies, plays on some of the horrors of politics in the last 20 years so everybody can wake their hand up and stop cutting this stuff out?
I want to respond to that and say that, first of all, that Woodie King has produced all of Amiri Baraka's work on stage, and he's also made 6 films, and Voza's made many documentaries. So they've been doing what you're asking for. So I just want to say, and I think that that's going to continue in terms of the work. So thank you for saying that.
January 6th in that.
Okay, brother. Okay.
Include what?
January 6th. You going to make a January 6th movie?
No, no.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon,
It's a
John.
very unique moment in time. May never be duplicated again, so I want to ask this question. Voza, you've been blessed with a long and generous, plentiful life. How would you like to be remembered?
It's a nice question, John. I'm a son of Harlem. I believe that my service was to continue to elevate and memorialize arts and culture in the community where I live. And I'd like to be remembered that I contributed to the cultural landscape by our forefathers.
Yeah.
You think Woody? Woody, how you want to be remembered?
I've never thought of that. I've never thought of that. I think I've done 300 or 400 plays by new writers. I've introduced people to the American theater. I've introduced actors, artists, designers, and I hope they will have a memory of me. And I hope, like, one of the reasons I'm here is Diane Richards called me and said this discussion was going to take place. And when I arrived in New York, John Killens, Paula Marshall, and was all a member of the Harlem Writers Group. And then John O'Killens, and these people became my friends, and I read their work, and that's the memory I have of them. I hope people will read my book. And I could tell the way you're talking. You haven't seen any of my films. You know, you haven't seen any, because that's what they are. Julian Mayfield's The Long Night, Torture of Mothers, Truman Nelson, Segregating the Greatest Generation, The Death of Malcolm X. These, if you see these films, that's what it's about, politics, and how they touch our lives, and how these people touched our lives. And I did those films 35, 40 years ago. So you know what I mean? So Sour's Red Gravy Stories by Diane Richards. That's a mixture of politics, and it's so many things. If you go to the theater and see that, you'll say, I want to do this play. I got to figure out how to do this play. Now, so right away, a new federal theater will grab a hold to a Diane Richards because she writes across all these genres. Now, but I don't know how she do it. I don't know how she, well, I don't want to put you on the spot, but she, if you read her work, you'll know. But then you say, wow, man, I got to go buy this book. I got to go find this publisher. I got to write her. I got to call her. I don't want to do that. But that's the only way you're going to learn it. And that's what I had to do.
And that's what you've always done, Woody. And
Yeah.
you do both. I mean, it's really, that's part of what is you know, at the beginning, Diane said she called you courageous cultural creators. And I think that's something that I will remember you as and by, because indeed that is who you are. And I want to thank you for this conversation. It's been really incredible. Thank you very much. And so, yes. Thank you. Wait, she's going to say some words. Now, Sarah Holliday wants to say a few words. Right. And then we have a short film.
Yes, thank you. No, really just to add my thanks on behalf of the New York Society Library to all our presenters and those participating today of Voza Rivers, Woodie King Jr., Michael Dinwiddie, the artist Anubis, Gary Vincent, and Diane Richards, who is our main organizer, along with Sylvia White, for everything today. So thank you very much, and thank you again to the Oak Foundation for sponsoring the library's Black Literature Matters events, including this one. So yes, we are going to close with another short video. If we can turn the TV back on, we will make that go.
And I just want to make sure Gary Vincent, our minister, was also Gary, our Reverend Gary. So thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Nice to meet you.
Don't go!
No, let me do it. Don't make them stay.
Greetings from Harlem. Mongani, this is a message to you and all of the creative things that you have done. When we first met with Woza Albert, followed by Asena Molly, followed by Serafina, Township Fever, it was a relationship that is indelible in the history of Harlem and in the history of New York City. The work that we did together stands out as an outstanding contribution of America and South Africa working together. And that could not have been possible without your genius, without your commitment, and without you sharing your talents, not only in your own country, but with me and the community of Harlem. Thank you for allowing me and committed artists and New Heritage Theater Group to become one large family. I look forward to Serafina in 2024, and we are expecting that to be the same kind of attraction and significance as Serafina was 35 years ago.
The day of liberation!
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. The refreshments.